If there's a plant that seems to unite people in dislike, it's poison ivy. For centuries, hikers, farmers, and just about anyone wandering the woods of North America have come to know 3 leaflets. Let them be. But poison ivy is more than just a botanical annoyance. In a world increasingly aware of ecology, climate change, and environmental resilience, poison ivy turns out to be a fascinating and sometimes troubling part of the conversation.
Ow.
Poison ivy is native to North America. It's not an introduced invasive species, but one that's always been part of the natural landscape, coexisting with oaks, pines, and countless undergrowth plants. Its notorious reputation comes from urushiol, a compound that, in most people, causes an incredibly itchy and persistent rash. Thanks to this toxic oil, poison ivy adapts quickly and has very few animal predators. But if you step back and examine the plant from an ecological perspective, the story becomes much more complicated. Environmentalism at its heart is about balance, about supporting native ecosystems, promoting biodiversity, managing invasive threats, and facing down the growing impacts of climate change. In this context, poison ivy has both friends and foes. It's worth asking, what role does this villainized vine really play? First, poison ivy is, in many respects, a model of ecological success. It grows in the shade and the sun, on rich loam and urban rubble, along riverbanks and city alleys. Its berries, though toxic to humans, are a crucial late summer food for migratory birds such as robins and thrushes. Its flowers support native bees and other pollinators. The dense shade of its climbing form can help stabilize eroding soil on slopes and riverbanks. But here's where things get interesting. Environmental change, particularly the rising carbon dioxide levels in our atmosphere, is giving poison ivy an unprecedented edge. Numerous studies have shown that with more CO2 in the air, poison ivy not only grows faster and bigger, but its urushiol becomes more potent. In other words, climate change is turning an already pesky plant into an even more formidable presence. For environmentalists, this presents a tricky problem. Poison ivy's boom is a microcosm of a larger story. Humans altering natural systems in ways we can always anticipate. Efforts to support native plants sometimes overlook the reality that abundance is not always the same as balance. Poison ivy is, by every definition, a native plant, but one that's thriving too much in today's altered world. This overabundance creates ripple effects. For instance, in areas where deer populations have exploded due to hunting restrictions and land use changes, deer avidly consume many other native understory plants, leaving poison ivy which they avoid room to expand even further. The result is a feedback loop. Fewer competitors, more poison ivy, and a monoculture that can actually reduce the kind of rich biodiversity environmentalism seeks to protect. At the same time, for those with an eye on pollinators or migratory birds, poison ivy remains valuable. Its white berries are often all that is left at the end of autumn when most other foods are gone. It may be unpleasant for humans, but a lifeline for wildlife. And as more city planners and conservationists seek to restore native plant communities, the question quickly arises: should poison ivy be left alone or managed aggressively? Is a thriving native always a good thing? Or can native species become problematic when the wider system is off-kilter? And then there's the human dimension. Efforts to promote rewilding or cultivate native plant gardens can run straight into the public's deep aversion to poison ivy. Land managers who advocate for native plant restoration must balance the health benefits of outdoor access with the reality that trails. Parks and backyards overrun with poison ivy exclude people, especially those most sensitive to urushiol. There is no easy answer. Poison ivy is both a winner and a warning. It reminds us that environmentalism's goals are not simply to promote what is native or natural, but to foster genuine balance and resilience. Sometimes that means accepting the plant's role in the web of life. Sometimes it means careful, targeted management, especially where people and poison ivy are sure to collide. In the end, poison ivy is a potent symbol of environmental complexity, how native species can take advantage of human-induced change, and how straightforward ideas like protecting nature often come with unexpected trade-offs. The next time you spot those iconic 3 leaves, consider, in an age of environmental transformation, our villains can quickly become our teachers. And our efforts to live with nature demand constant adaptation and humility.